All right, welcome back to the Evolution Podcast with Mac and Jenn. And today we're just going to go over a topic. We haven't discussed it much at all. We just said, let's talk about this. And we're going to just see where it leads to, because I think it's a great conversation to have and just be general about it and talk about it in a way that you would actually possibly talk about it or think about it yourself. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen because she's the one that had the question to start with, and then I'm going to respond back to that, and we're going to go back and forth and kind of see what we come up with as we do it. So, what was the question that you just presented to me?
Well, should I explain maybe why I presented this question, like why it came up in my mind? Or do you just want me to say it first?
I mean, you can tell me why.
Okay,
I'm
well,
good with it.
I'll say it first. So it's like a quote that we're going to talk about, and the quote is, "Fall in love with reality, not potential."
Fall in love with reality, not potential. I'm guessing this kind of falls into a particular avenue of life.
Relationships.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. So potential meaning not so much in the relationship, but in the individual, correct?
Yes.
Like what you see the potential in somebody versus the reality.
I think the potential that you see in somebody or in the relationship.
Okay, so if I'm hearing this correctly, and I'm going to assume something here, and what you're saying is there's the reality of who somebody is, and they will typically tell you who they are. But if you're stuck in the potential of who you think they could be, you're going to get fucked. Or you have a potential idea of something you think you could create.
Yes.
That's not actual reality.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's kind of the now, but you said you wanted to tell me why you want to talk about that.
Well, yeah, maybe. So like what I notice is with a lot of people, especially women that I talk to,
Mhm.
and I don't know how much men do, if men do this as much as women, maybe but us women, when we start dating somebody or talking to somebody, we tend to start romanticizing about what could be, and we start to fall in love with the idea of who they might become or what they might bring to the table or what could be, as opposed to the reality of what is. So we tend to like fall in love with potential over reality, and then we get like kind of we feel like we get burned in the end, when the truth is that person has been showing us all along who they are, but the expectations of who they can be, um that grow in our heads, we fall in love with that. We fall in love with potential over reality, and we end up feeling hurt in the end with that. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, and then we get the messages about the shit show that we probably told someone, like, this is what you're going to create, and then they create it, and then they come bitching to us, and it's like, well, we told you, like you had the evidence of what it was, and now 2 months 30 days later, you're now complaining that you now have twice over proven the evidence, and you're hurt and broken and all these things. But it was your choice.
for example, I have a girlfriend who um really likes this guy, and they've been quote unquote dating for probably a year, maybe longer, I don't know, but he has straight up told her multiple times like he doesn't want a relationship, and he goes out to the bar and like parties every single weekend, and then calls her at like midnight, 1 in the morning, to come over.
I think we've got multiple people in our lives that do that. Like, I mean, it's not just one person. There's a lot of people doing this that we interact with.
And she gets really upset because, she wants a man, she wants a boyfriend, she wants him to stop going out on the weekends. And she gets upset because she wants dates, she wants more, and
She wants to be cherished.
she wants to be cherished, and he's not giving that to her. But she's so in love with the idea and what he could become.
Mm.
rather than just seeing it for what it is.
It's about to go rated R real fast.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah, because there's a serious reality check that has to be kicked in at this point. Most of the time when someone is at this point, especially for women, they're usually caught up in it's not just a psychological thing. It becomes a biological factor because there's certain things that happen inside the body that as you go through this, it's like there's a metaphor that says like you imprint on somebody. But what happens is there's biological factors that kick in that cause hormones that attach you to the other person in such a strong bonded way that you're kind of fucked. Because it's like whether you like it or not, consciously, psychologically, anything else, like you can't explain why you're so attached to this person. It's because of a chemical reaction. It's kind of like when a mother gets a baby, there's chemicals released that cause the mom to bond to that kid. That's why all mothers think their baby's like the most beautiful thing ever, even if it's like, what the fuck is that? Like, no offense, but there's like ugly babies and there's beautiful babies. But if it's your baby, it's a beautiful baby because of the biological part. This is what keeps mothers attached to their kids so that they don't just abandon them and do whatever. It's a biological effect. And it also happens between men and women. It's something that's designed to happen, which is why there's things that as a woman you should and shouldn't do with a man until you get to a certain point. Like there are things that you need to set proper boundaries or you will wind up in the same position and you can't explain why you won't walk away or why he won't like here's a different one. There's a reason once you break those boundaries why he will never commit, because you've created a situation that he doesn't need to. He knows like there's an energy there that says, no, you're already bonded. Why the fuck do I have to work any harder? But he's showing you who he is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so keep in mind, like we understand how this happens and why it happens and all that shit. But this idea that this potential that you see or whatever, or I mean, I've even heard women be like, yeah, but he's tall, and like a tall women like tall guys, and they can't find a tall guy. So then they justify in their mind of like, well, I need this, and they hang on to something that they despise in a sense. And then they destroy the relationship, or he's got a big whatever, or there's like stories and stories on stories, but there's a lot to it.
It's like we meet somebody and then we start to in our minds put them in this box of how we feel like they should show up and what we think you guys should be doing for us, and then when you don't, we feel heartbroken.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea of falling in love with reality instead of potential, it's really not easy to do because we all want it. We all and a lot of us too think that we can change these guys and they'll change for us, right? And I think that like when I was dating a lot, going through these men and just seeing like who they were and what they did, what they enjoyed, and like kind of observing and then asking myself, like, is this what I want? Rather than creating stories in my mind that, maybe they can change or maybe they can do this, or trying to change them into who I wanted them to be. I just said like yes or no. So I think that, falling in love with reality over potential. And a lot of women get triggered sometimes when I say that they all have potential because they do, but it's like a lot, but it's, will they step into it?
Yeah, I never heard this, but my dad told me that my grandma or his grandma always said potential are the road bricks to hell. Right? Like believing in potential is what's going to lead you to hell. And it's a true statement, because like somebody can have all the potential in the world but be the most destructive person ever. Until there's a result, potential is a fallacy. And you said women will
Romanticize.
romanticize something, get men fantasize, right? Totally different. Like men are way more biological. They will fantasize about this woman being all these different things and then create this story of like what it's going to be and everything else. That's a complete fantasy. And the majority of the time, both people are lying about who they are. They're not being fully present in who they are. They're not willing to expose their bullshit and their lies. They just think, well, I'll just, they'll find out eventually. But for now, I just want to keep them this. So you get trapped inside this little bubble. Then you wind up with sexual interactions, commitments, expectations, and all these different things that keep you trapped now when the truth comes out. And within 6 months, I can ask somebody, okay, if you were single right now and you just met this person and knew these behaviors about them at day one, would you even date them? And the answer is no.
That's a good question.
Yeah. And the answer is typically no. Well, then why the fuck are you with them? Well, but I love them. I don't give a shit. Like, I've loved a lot of people. Like,
well, we fall in love. We don't. I think we love. Can love the person, but it's like we fall in love. We fall in love with what could be. We fall in love with the story,
yeah.
and then we say, oh, I love him, and yeah, I loved him, and like, I'm sure he's a great person. Like, you can love him, but like, is he right for you? Or, are you in love with the story? Because you can create that story literally with anybody. Like, is it him or is it the story?
From my experience between talking with all the different people out there and coaching and just observing, and even people I don't coach, but I see, I know where they're at. And I would say that probably 95% of relationships are held together by scarcity, not by love. And you really have to think about that, because the reality is, like, if you knew there was something better guaranteed over there, most people would leave. But most people are too afraid of leaving what they have to go get what they want. And it's not to say that you should leave what you have. If you're married, what you both should do is figure out how to both grow and figure out if you actually fit. There's difference. Like, we're both divorced, like, we've been through this shit, so we're not judgmental on it. But there were choices that had to be made. It was like, I want a different life. She changed and said, I don't want to drink. I don't want to do this stuff. Her ex was like, I'm still going to party and drink. It's like, it's not a fit. Like, how do you come together at that point? That was the decision made. Had to go different ways. I was like, I want to be really fucking honest. I don't want to hold anything back. I don't care anything I've done, what I've done. I don't care. I just want to be fully present with every single person. I want to be able to stand in front of Jesus Christ and say, this is who I am. I know I'm messed up. I know I made all these mistakes, but here's everything. Here it is. And to me, that was the trigger where she went, nope, I'm not playing that game. I don't want to be exposed, and ran off to some other guy. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But I know I now have a relationship where we can go on a road trip and not once fought. Like, we sat in a car for like 14 hours or something, like it was like 16 hours coming out of Houston, wasn't it?
Yep. 16
Yeah,
hours.
16 hours, 16, 17 hours in a car together. Not a single animosity or anything almost after a year of being together. I mean, it's like, it's just so easy. And before, I've just never experienced that, to be honest. It's just like, it is what it is. So blessings to me. Thank God for learning and growing and all these different things. Like, no harm to anybody else. But this idea of getting caught up in these different things, like, people get stuck in scarcity. And they begin to look at it, and as soon as they think the other person might leave them, they're back in the relationship. Like, they can get mad, they can be like, I don't like this, I don't want this, blah, 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 blah. But then they think about getting left and this other person being with somebody else and all these different things, and the scarcity kicks in, and it's like that intense drama, and then they fight, and then the fight is their emotional connection, because as humans, you need emotional connection, and that becomes what drives the relationship. And that's how most people exist. And it's just kind of how it works for a lot of people. But what if it didn't have to be? What if I get triggered or she gets triggered, and we just stop and we take a moment to assess it and figure out, like, is this really important? Like, are there ultimatums that we hold, or can I look at this differently, or whatever? And for both of us, it works out. Like, we just kind of figure out, like, no, this is just my stuff, or I just need to ask different questions and see if we're on the same page. And even if I'm like kind of questioning something where I'm like, I don't know, is she this way? Like, I've never really asked her, like, do I need to be concerned about this? So then I just have the conversation openly. And it's like, oh yeah, it works. Perfect. Of course it does. Right. So, but it really comes down to your own ability to be whole inside yourself. If you're not whole in here, and you're wearing a mask or have stuff you're hiding, then you can never trust that the other person fully sees you and loves you, because you don't have the love of yourself to fully be present with yourself. And you're literally kind of stuck on your own potential of like, well, someday I want to have this, or someday I want to like never tell a lie, or someday I want to be perfect, or some weird story. But the reality is, like, I'm not perfect. I can screw something up tonight and kind of be like, yeah, I fucked that up. Or I do something embarrassing. I'm like, yeah, that was embarrassing, whatever, or just, and it's just like, I don't know. She could be like, why did you do that? Like that, I can't handle that, and leave. And I'm just like, okay, I guess if you're going to leave over that, you weren't meant to be. And so when I'm focused on like the end result of, I just want the person that fits me perfectly, and I want to fit that person perfectly. So if something weird kind of happens, if it's embarrassing or something, we're just totally chill. Like I don't know, but if you've ever felt embarrassed or anything, like maybe that's more my thing. But if she was like, I don't remember it. Like it was probably just something cute to me, or something. And that's how it should be. The other person should fit you and fulfill you. And I mean, I'm not saying everything's going to be perfect all the time, because we're growing, right? Like that's part of the process. You were going to say something?
I didn't really have anything to say currently, no, but yeah, you're doing great.
Must be on point. Like, must be kind of following her thoughts here. So let's go back to a little bit of the potential, because there are some, like I said, this could go rated R pretty quick. So if a guy is going drinking and doesn't commit, it means, like I said, fantasy. He's gonna fuck around, period. Like it's just a matter of time. Like, why won't he commit? Doesn't want to, blah blah blah, has some baggage. Okay, well, if he's at a bad relationship and says, well, I just like, I don't believe in it, blah blah blah, it's bullshit, or some fucking story, whatever. It's lies. If you're a woman and you think you're in a committed relationship, like, what evidence do you have? Seriously, like, what evidence do you have? Is there a ring on your finger? Like, what is the proof of whatever? And keep in mind, I'm saying this, and there's not a ring on her finger. Okay, so like, does she have a commitment with me? Well, she's got evidence of how I show up. Right? That's what keeps things moving right now, until that happens. And yeah, there's a discussion about it and everything else, but there's no commitment there. It's all evidence of who I am and how I show up, which is pretty good. When day one, I told her, this is all the shit that's fucked up with me that I just need you to know. You're like, it is what it is. You can take it or leave it or whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, I will tell you my deepest, darkest secrets right now. Is it appropriate? I don't give a fuck if it is or not. I just don't want to wear a mask. I want to be free inside of a relationship. I don't want to have traps. So that's just how I roll. And because of that, she can be like, is he being honest? Well, I don't know another fucking guy that would have exposed that much shit immediately, with the potential of losing a relationship or a potential relationship with somebody as amazing as me. That's what she was thinking. Okay. She's very secure in herself. And that makes a huge difference. When she's secure, she can say no. She can walk away. She can do whatever. Even if she gets the emotional bonding thing, she's so secure in herself that she can just be like, ultimately, the question is, does this feel like love, or is this going to fit long term? And if there's things in there that are like, he does not align on this point, and it's just like, it's not worth hoping that he aligns. Why not just leave for a while, go try to find something that does align? And if he does change and proves evidence of the change, then maybe there's a conversation to be had. Okay, but staying in, like, I've stayed in. Okay. Like I've stayed in these relationships waiting and hoping because I was in the relationship. So I was committed. So I wouldn't quit, and I probably should have, but I stayed hoping with the potential of what could be. Right. My only grace to that is like, it was, it was weak, to be honest, but that was my path to growth. Through those years, even though I was falsely believing in potential, I had my own shit to fix, and I did. And so I can say with confidence, it's a blessing that I went through that shit. But if you're a woman and this guy is going and doing these different things and everything else, now I'm not opposed to guys having friends that are girls if he shows up a certain way, right? Like I don't have any qualm to this. Some guys will, some girls will, some guys won't, whatever. But naturally, guys have fantasies, right? They fantasize about stuff. Guys are physical. They want to fuck everything. I don't care what any of them say. Like they have a tendency to do that. There's an animalistic nature in a man that will come out. And if he's not somewhat able to support that, like knowing that he's a fucking beast inside and that he's gonna do stupid shit once in a while, but he has to keep that beast trained, right? It's like having an animal that you train. And if you train it well, it obeys your commands. If you don't, it will lash out, it will do something crazy, it will break out, it will get free, like all these different things. So there's evidence. If you're a woman, if you're believing in potential, you know you're fucked, period, right? And the only way to change it is to disrupt the pattern that is in play. Because as an animal, once an animal is trained, they don't change unless there is pain, period. Animals don't have love. Like they will love on you, they will bond to you, they will do these different things, but they don't, necessarily change over love. They change over discipline and pain. Right. So if you're in this situation, there has to be an ultimatum. There has to be like, hey, if I don't see this, I don't want to live this life this way. And then typically you'll get a lie, says, yeah, I'll do it. And then there's no evidence of it. And then they don't do it. And then it's just being sold on the future potential, which means they're not keeping their fucking word. And if they're not keeping their word, who the fuck are they? They're a liar and you're fucked, period. End of story. Like, stop fucking believing that this is going to change without anything. I have a rule. Something bad happens, change, and then prove it for 2 to 5 years. If that happens, now I'll believe you. But if you break that trust, now you have to do it for two years. Now you can have micro trust along the way that says that if you keep showing up this way, I will give you credit in this way, but you will not get the full me until 2-year proof.
But I will say that, like, for my friend that where the guy, he's going out drinking every weekend, and that's what he enjoys to do that. That's what he wants to do, and she doesn't want him to do that. I would say that it's like you kind of just have to believe what they're saying, believe what they're showing you, and listen to that, because and then ask yourself, is this right for me? Is this what I want? Because I think that, like, men will tell us exactly what they want and they will show us who they are, and then we get to decide, like, is that right for me? Is that what I want? Well, I think most of the time, because, like, I mean, all the guys that I was dating, like, some of them were a little, scattered, and I could tell, like, they didn't know what they wanted. They would say one thing and do something and act differently,
which shows
me that they're not ready for a woman like me. So then I just had to, assess and move on. Or, the other friend of mine that I had told you about with the pie thing.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted to, not Mac, I'm pointing to Mac, but this other guy I dated, he wanted to kind of have multiple women in his sphere of women he was giving his energy to. And, but he wanted me to be like his number one. Well, I didn't want to be a number one. Like, I wanted to be like the only one. And so rather than me, stressing out or freaking out and putting in all this energy to try to change him, I just said, this is what you want. I don't want that. So with that being said, we're going to have to part ways. And that's it. because nobody, I don't think men want to be changed, and I don't believe that it's our job to try to change them. It's not worth the energy. Um, so I just leave it at that. But like, I think that a man, the right man, will show up for you and continue to show up for you. Um, so it's not worth wasting the energy
Yeah,
on men that
and
aren't.
and then, and then there's the opposite side where there's some women that say, this is what I want, and if you step outside these boundaries, fuck you. And it's like, well, there's a little bit of a rule here that says some grace is given, like maybe once or twice a little bit of grace is given depending on like where you stand as far as ultimatums. Obviously, if the person says they're committed to you and then they go fuck around, I mean, there's not much grace for that. It's like, if you excuse that, you can expect it more than once. So you have to understand that. However, there is plenty of room for error inside of dating, inside of getting this going. And if it happens, if there's a correct, like well, not cheating, but like if somebody does something you disapprove of, and you just tell them, this doesn't work for me, then they're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, okay, it's like if somebody is out smoking weed once in a while and you don't like it, right? And you're like, I don't want any part of that. And they're like, oh, well, I don't really need it. I just was bored. Like, so you're not gonna, no, screw it. Like, if you don't, I don't need it, whatever. If that's who they are, like, you give them the grace and you just move on, right? As long as you don't see a behavior doing it again, or so, like, there's little things that can happen. Keep in mind, a single guy is a shit show. Like, and so when he gets in a relationship, he's going to do dumb stuff. So you can expect some disruptions, even if it's simple things like just doing something you dislike. You just have to say, this is what I want. And then he says, well, if he's honest, he says, well, I don't care what you want. Or he says, this is how I want to do it. Or, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's no problem for me. And then he can say, well, this is what I look for. And you work back and forth and you coexist just fluidly, then that works. But it's very possible that I know I've done a few things here and there where I was like, that was dumb. Like, I apologize for that. That was kind of dumb. I don't know why yeah, I'm like that. You didn't like that. You didn't like how it felt or anything else. Like, yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, yeah, I apologies on me. Right. And then that solves it right there. Like, I make the decision. But anything past one or two times of me like doing something that was like just stupid, what would be like anything after that, it would be enabling the behavior, in which case now you can expect it for the rest of the relationship.
And I would just too, like, never assume that somebody's on the same page as you.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Because, because what may be cheating to you may not be cheating to them, or, never assume that, like,
I've heard people say that, like, they just thought cheating was like how it was done. Like, they like, I seriously, I've met some guys that were just like, I just thought it was like what guys did, like we were supposed to. Like, literally, that was their belief. Whereas, like, for me, it was like the worst thing ever. So but if you don't communicate some of these things, like, we've even had these conversations where, I mean, we could assume that we want to be the one with the person and like the only one, but we talked about it, and that, we have talked about it. But it's like, just to be clear, you don't want to, do whatever. And so we just have the uncomfortable conversation sometimes of like, this is how we stand and this is what we want. And it's like, no, I just want you, period. And at one time, like, I was open to trying to, like, I would really enjoy friendships with all people, men and women. But what I found is I can't really be friends with, or I guess women can't be friends with me for the most part. Like, there's some, but if I'm around them too much and just being kind and compassionate with empathy, it's like, hold up. And I have to put distance with them. And typically that's the other way around. Usually, like with her, the guys, they just see some beautiful woman, their mind goes where it goes. and it's like this crazy thing that happens. But the reason why it happens is we're both very secure in who we are. We don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. We just keep doing what we're doing, and we're content right here. And that draws people in really, really hard. And when you open a smile or compassion, it really draws them in. So some of these things that you see other people, like if you see somebody that has a relationship that you want or pieces of it, you need to start latching onto that and saying, how will I know that I have it when I have it? Not potential, but how will I know that I have it? And if I don't, I want to know that I don't, so that I can leave it if it's not there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You like, it reminds me of when you were just talking just now, it made me think of this time when I was at the gas station, and it was like late at night, and I smiled as I walked out of the gas station. I smiled at this guy, not because I was like trying to flirt or anything. I just smiled because I usually smile at people when I walk past them. And I get in my car and I start driving home, and for some reason I felt like I was being followed, and I was. And so I pulled over in my neighborhood on the side of the road, and this young man pulls up in his car next to me, and I look like, look over at him, and I'm like, what do you want? Like, yes. And he was like, oh, well, he says, you smiled at me, and I was wondering if I can get your number. And in my mind, I just thought, like, I didn't even know that I smiled at him or anything. I was just like, whatever. And I did not give him my number. But what's funny was when you were just saying, you smile at someone, I bet you from the gas station until he pulled up next to my car, he probably
Fantasized
fell in love with, he probably planned out a little bit of our future together and what was going to happen.
something. It's like it's crazy.
And then it turns out, though, like, he was only like 21 years old or something.
Yeah.
And I'm in my 30s, a bit older than him. And I was like, yeah, no. I was like, how old are you? He's like 21. I'm like, oh, you're so cute. But, and, I appreciate like how proactive you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not right for each other. But I think that he probably, in his mind created this potential of what could happen between us, and it wasn't there. But that's what you just reminded me of that.
Yeah, but that's what happens with men and women, and it just like it happens at different times, random times. It's that like I've seen women watch a movie and go romanticize about a guy. It's like, well, this doesn't make any sense, but it's emotions. Like if you're not secure in yourself emotionally, you will romanticize about all kinds of stuff or fantasize about stuff.
This is why it's important to know what you want, but also know how you want to feel.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling the way that you want to feel, then I would question, like, is this right for me?
Yeah, and also look at the evidence. Like the past year of us being together, almost a year, right? Mm-hmm. So not quite, but we're going on a year. It's been like so easy and amazing, and just I can't, it's like hard to keep up with everything that's happened. It feels like we've lived like 5 years in one, because it's like we're not even trying, but we just have fun and enjoy it, and then like everything just works out. It's like this is how it should feel, right? This is how easy it should be. This is how enjoyable life should be. How, like, I shouldn't have to go to work and concern my mind with shit going on at home, right? Like, because before, in my previous marriage, it was like half my energy was spent thinking about the fight that was the night before or that day, or what's going to be said about this, or how are we going to deal with this. And it's like a constant war because of a relationship. And so if you feel like you're being drained by a relationship, you really need to look at what's going on. Because when you have somebody that fulfills you and supports you or cherishes you or whatever, it's like things just happen and they flow, and then you manifest things like never expected. I you should be speaking like me, like I can't explain it.
Mm.
I know why it's happening because of who we are, what we do, what we understand, how to manifest in these different things. So I understand that. I expect these things that I have no idea are going to happen. When they happen, I kind of expect it because of I understand how this works. But before, with the fighting and the energy that it took to kind of just maintain life, and how there was just like this constant battle at war type of thing, it was like, why would you choose that? And but I was married, so I tried to keep making it work, and it just, fortunately, she left. So the the um it's kind of a look at your results. If you look at your results, if you're in a relationship and you look at your results, and your energy or your mind is sitting on top of like the other person in your relationship for a good part of the day or whatever, and it's not super super positive, you have a problem that you need to address. And there's probably going to have to be some level of an ultimatum that says either we're going to move together or we're going to move apart, because I want more out of it. And there's no reason why you can't have more, and you just let them choose. Just make your move, make your change, but you can't stay stuck on the potential thing. Like, it's a fucking lie. Why? Why? You like I had this idea in my mind that my ex would get in shape because she was good at everything else. She had the potential to do the work, to be able to do it, and then she just kept gaining weight, gaining weight, gaining weight, gaining weight, gaining weight. And I'm just like, finally I had to be like, this is bullshit, you got to fix it. And feeling like an asshole, which, by the way, is a bunch of bullshit programming from society. Like, don't tell a woman whatever. Excuse me, but if I have a problem with something, that's the first thing I'm going to do is take it to her. If there's something that I disagree with, I'm just going to be like, hey, this is where I stand. Don't need to feel bad about it or fight about it or anything else, because she wants to be on the same page as me as much as I want to be on the same page as her. And if it's truly not a fit, then it's not a fit, and we're okay with that. We'll just be like, okay, well, I guess this isn't a fit. It's been amazing. We'll go find our fit, because it's going to be even more amazing. Or it's going to be like, okay, you're right. If she tells me, hey, this part of what's happening here is not a fit for me, it's pretty quick for me to just be like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Guess you just need to figure out what to do about it. Right? I just own it. If I'm doing something that doesn't line up with what she wants, most from my experience between us and how everything's worked, I would probably agree with her. I'd probably just be like, I understand. So got any ideas on what you need done, or how we need to go about this? Because it's already in my mind. Now, a lot of people in a relationship, what tends to happen is if the other person brings something up, first thing that happens is there's an attack back because they feel attacked. So if I said something to her like, hey, you need to do this, if she feels attacked, she's going to point the finger back at me and be like, well, you did this, well, you did that. However, with us, we're pretty content. We know our failures, we know our weaknesses, we understand it, we want to grow. So if she points out something in me, if I feel attacked, the first thing I'm gonna do is shut the fuck up and walk away. Right? Like, if I feel attacked, I'm not having the conversation. I'm just going to be like, let me think about it, and I'll leave. But because I work on myself and I'm content, I'll just sit there. I'll be like, okay, well, what do we need to do? Let's talk about it. And we'll just have the conversation right then and there. And I will choke on my ego for a little bit. We'll get whatever needs to be said. I will go process it, find a solution, and come back. Right? No problem. Like, it, because at the end of the day, really what I want is to win and to be successful and to have an amazing relationship. And isn't that the behavior that I would want from her as well? And that's what I get from her. So it's this thing about, because we're so content in ourselves, because we're not telling lies, hiding shit, putting on a fucking mask, trying to be somebody we're not, we don't give a shit. Like, it's like, whatever. Well, if she brings something to my attention If it's not a fit for me, I'm just going to say like, no, this is where I stand. And then the discussion becomes like, is there a way to work it out? Because if there's not, it's over. But if it's on me, or or even different, I might bring something to her that I feel this way that I think she might want to change, and she might throw it back in my face and be like, "Oh, you sure about that? Like, why is this a problem? Why is this a big deal? Whatever." And might come back and be like, "Well, blah blah blah," and she's like, "Yeah, but if you did this and this and that, then you might be here." Be like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Like, well, maybe we need to just meet in the middle on this. And all right, well, and then you learn, right? If you go into this thinking that you know everything, you're screwed. The more I learn, the more I understand I know so little. And also the more I learn that I can evolve into seeing things differently, being more open to things, being more chill, being happier, all these different things that play out in my life. So there is no perfectly right answer, but one thing that there is absolute for me is don't fucking lie. Like, if you lie, expose it. If you make a mistake, just correct it. Like it can be forgiven. It can be repented of. It can be whatever. I don't care what it is, but as long as you're willing to just expose it and say, this is really what I want, and be calm about it and work through it, I don't see how you could go wrong. But I'm not going to believe in some false potential. Like there's things that we have brought up before where I was like, I don't go along with this. This is what I think. Where are you at? With the potential of it ending. And it didn't, obviously, but I didn't know. So I had to talk about it. And it's uncomfortable to talk about those things. It's even more uncomfortable to walk away from something that you fall in love with. And no one wants to leave love. They don't. But fortunately for me, I guess, I've been lucky enough to love a lot of people, and a lot of women, and some for several years. And so it's kind of like, I just see it as a blessing. I see it as a learning and education, and that is what, and I think it's been the same for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, it's very easy, but the main thing is this potential thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how the fuck do you get away from it when you're in it?
Well, you just realize that once you don't fall in love with the potential, you see them for who they are, and then you get to make a decision, and you know that it's not worth your time or your energy to try to change anybody. And so you end it knowing that something better and more aligned for you is coming, and everybody you date, everything you go to is all learning experiences and is preparing you for the one that's actually meant for you. So you let go so you can get closer to where you're supposed to be, but knowing that you're getting ready for him while he's getting ready for you, and perhaps you guys just aren't ready for each other yet, and that's why you haven't met yet, but you need to go through other to get there. And so you just let it go, and you say, you're a great person, I think you're amazing, and you want this, you show up this way, and I want this, and so because of that we're not aligned, and so we have to end it. No big deal.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of end on this. There's one thing that I see happen a lot as people try to end relationships, and especially with women and some guys will typically just go fuck around until they get caught and then leave. And that's kind of what they wanted in the first place. Women, if they do something, no one knows about it or anything else, whatever. But what they do is they find evidence to get away rather than just say, this isn't what I want, and leave. They begin to find evidence, and most of the time it's an assumption. It's not even real evidence. It's they will trigger a guy by poking the bear. Then he'll lose his shit, and now he's an asshole, right? Like that's, or all kinds of other things, or she will push him to the brink of cheating and then blame him for the affair. And it's like, fuck you, stop. If you don't want to be there, just walk away. Stop destroying two people when like the choice is to just both of you move apart. But there's all this fear that comes in. Well, if I told him I was leaving, he's going to do this. Well, he might kill me. He might do this. He's crazy. He's blah, blah, all assumptions. We don't know. We don't know. And I've literally seen this. And I've also seen some people get called out on it. And then because it was called out and they got honest, it fixed their relationship. And they actually came together instead of growing apart because it was caught before she could build all the evidence against him. Type thing. And it is typically the woman that builds the evidence against the guy, not 100% all the time, but it's the majority of the time is that, even though the guy will build evidence against her, he won't. It's totally different. So if you find yourself trying to figure out how to leave, you're just hurting the both of you. Just leave. If you're at that point of figuring out why you need to justify leaving, you're already like, come on. It is what it is. And my suggestion is just tell them, it's like when my ex got to a certain weight, when she was 262 pounds at 5'4", I was like, oh, this relationship is over. Like if this doesn't get corrected at this point, this is so bad. If this doesn't get corrected at this point, it's over. So I just as well expose it. So I was finally like, I felt like an asshole. I should have just told her way before, to be honest. I should have told her way before this. So it was my fault for not. But I finally went and said, listen, if you don't correct this, it's going to end our marriage. Like, you have to do something about this. And if you're unwilling to fucking fix this and have the discipline that's required to do this, we should just go our way now. And it was a fight. And I'm like, why does it need to be a fight? It's just the fucking truth. Like I can't change who I am in this moment. I know that if I can, I will. If it happens, great, whatever. But this is where I stand. And so I just had that hard conversation, and guess what? She worked on it. She lost like 60 fucking pounds in the next little bit. So it was like, okay, well, why not just do that from day one? Why not just say, if this is going to be a problem and you can tell it's going to be a problem, have the conversation. If you aren't capable of having that conversation to tell the fucking truth, if you're a woman and this guy is doing these things and you can't actually expose your emotions to him, which I know you got to be vulnerable, which makes you exposed, and you're a woman and you're a prey and you don't want to, you've got fight or flight kicking in, then you need to get help. You need to get somebody that can communicate this properly or show you how to communicate it. Cause I help a lot of women. Like, well, I told him this. No, what you did was you fucking attacked him. To him, he got attacked. You say you're trying to tell him your emotions, well, that you're scared. But what you walked in and told him, you're scaring me. That's not you showing your emotions. Like, that's you attacking him.
I think that communication between men and women could probably be a whole separate episode here.
That could be a whole 90-day training just on communication. But I'll just give you this little brief thing where if a guy is, let's just say, scaring, because I said that. If a guy is scaring you and you're like, you need to tell him you're scared, he's scaring you because he might be oblivious to it. He might just think this is how people behave or something, or maybe this is how his parents behaved, but they still stayed married forever. But it's like, whatever, but it's scaring you. It's a lot different to go in and like calm yourself down enough and get rid of your fucking ego, take the mask off and be like, listen, as your girlfriend, wife, whatever, when you did this, how I felt like you could potentially take my life, and it scares the fucking shit out of me. And I don't know if that's who you are or not, but it's terrifying. And I cannot participate in a relationship like that. I don't know. You need to tell me where the fuck you're at on this. And I can almost guarantee you'd be like, no, that's bullshit, whatever. Stop. Listen to me. Like, this is how I felt. I feared for my fucking life. And if you don't stop and recognize this of how I actually emotionally felt, then we're done. Because I need to know that you see me. And if you can do that calmly and get him to like click and be like, oh shit, like I fucked up, right? Like that's what he needs to register. And once he registers that he caused you fucking pain, it won't happen again. If it does, you get the fuck out. But most likely he's going to then realize, because you were honest and you exposed it, he's going to realize how bad he fucked up. And he's gonna be like, oh shit. And you're going to see him just like his whole expression, everything just fucking sink into like, oh fuck. And he's going to might wind up crying. I don't fucking know, but it will break him. What you think is breaking you will break him, because he's just as afraid as you are. That's like 99% of the time, that's what's going on. But if the stories and the lies are in your head telling you something different, you're going to have a major fucking problem. And you're just going to have attack versus attack, because your egos are weak and they're trying to defend each other. And good luck. But most of the time, you guys aren't going to be able to do this by yourselves. You need assistance to do this. And that's why you hire coaches or whatever. And, maybe a therapist, but I don't know. There's been like 1 out of 30 therapists that I've known that are actually capable of some of this shit. Coaches are more results based versus take your paycheck based. So keep that in mind as you work through it. But you got to find somebody that also has what you want. Like, don't listen to some motherfucker giving you advice that doesn't have it, and or hasn't been in your position. If they haven't been in your position to some degree, their advice is subpar. Like, always listen to, like, kind of listen to everybody except for an idiot. Like, if somebody has never had a good relationship or failed every relationship, you shouldn't be listening to them, and you should be willing to tell them, like, shut the fuck up. You don't know shit. Like, stop trying to give me advice when you failed at everything. Right now, if they've had something good, they can give you advice on what they did, what happened, and how they failed, but their failure had better be on themselves. Right. That should be the reality. Like, my relationship failed. My previous relationships failed because of me. They probably started because of me too. So, it's like, you got to keep all this stuff in mind. So just understand that really being honest and being able to be whole and true, like, that might want to be your number one goal inside relationships, is the one you have with yourself, to be able to be 100% honest, to love yourself, always be falling in love with yourself even more, be just living inside of that, like, your experience, your existence, and everything. Because when you're content, nobody can take you out.
Whether you just started dating somebody or you've been married for 20 years,
Or 50,
I
whatever.
think the honesty is number one across the board.
Yeah, and it's not like you do it once and you win. Like, you'll fuck up again. It's just like, there's still things that we talk about that I'm not, like, I don't want to talk about them necessarily, and it would be pretty easy to just be like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm like, no, it's better that I just keep the communication fully open, because even though she probably doesn't, she's probably like, really, there's something you didn't want to talk about, like, doesn't, like, to her it's nothing, but to me it's like embarrassing, right? It could be something like that. So I just expose it. I'm just going to fucking talk about it and make it something that I strip the power from my insecurities by exposing them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Anything else want to add to it?
I don't know. I mean, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's more we could talk about. It kind of went off different directions, but yeah, if I could show up in your relationship and ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, where you stand in your relationship, or like, what is it that you love about this person? And then say, challenge it to an extent, to, you tell me everything you love, and then I'll say, what's the problems you have in the relationship? And I'll bet they match. It's like people are liars in their relationship. So, and the other thing is like, if you had your life squared away, and you were loving life, and you were just absolutely loved yourself. Like, let's say everything just worked out. Your finances were working perfect, and you were single. Your finances were perfect. Your body was fucking on fire. You were just in amazing shape, everything. You're just so content. Life is flowing. You got the perfect job or money or whatever. The kids, everybody loves you. Your social standing, or like, everything is just absolutely perfect. Would you choose that person? Right there lets you know, like, to what degree, on a scale of 1 to 100, would you choose this person? Some of you are going to fucking lie and say yes, and you're a liar. And some of you are going to be like, hell no, right? because there's nobody that is that content with themselves. Like even as good as we're doing, like I'm still like working on everything. It's like we're still working on my body, still working on my money, still working on my relationships. Like everything is constantly learning, which is why I say I know less the more I learn, because it's like I just want more, right? But I have to also be content and happy with where I'm at right now.
Yes.
And so when you look at that and say, is this a person I want to be with? So if I look at, okay, if my life had all this other shit going on and everything else, would I still choose her 100%? Because for me, one of the biggest things was at some of my weakest moments, like she did not waver even a little bit. Like it was just like she was there, right? And there's nothing that compares to that. Not absolutely nothing. Like it's just absolutely unbelievable to me of like as I was processing information, working through my own problems and everything else, if there was never any judgment, it was just support. It was easy. It was like it like even times if she got a little upset with something, she would just go solve it or something, or we would talk about it. And sometimes she'd be like, I don't want to talk about it right now. I'd be like, okay. So then a day later, I'd bring it up, we would talk about it, and everything's fixed. It's like time just kind of like helps everything. And just the way she has shown up has so much value to me that it's like I have never seen anything like it before in my life. So if you ask me, would I choose her 100%? But there's no question. So ask yourself the question and then figure out wherever you're at and then start solving it. And if it's not a relationship, maybe it's your fucking business. Maybe you see too much potential in your business or too much potential in your fucking workout or your body or some other bullshit you got going on. Because I guarantee you, if you're on fire in your relationship, there's somewhere else in your life you need to address. Anything else?
No, that was really good.
Okay, that's it. I'll stop talking. I'll just keep talking. So. All right.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I hope somebody got what they needed from this and needs to plug in.